The Northern California Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Community Foundation is dedicated to promoting justice, health, education, and service. Please consider making a donation at NorcalMLKFoundation.org. Every donation makes a difference.
The SIDGE Center. Innovation, Ethics, Ingenuity.
Hey, who enjoys AI? Or who thinks about AI? I don't know whether enjoyment is the right word. Who thinks about AI? All right. It's important. Our next segment is with an incredible scholar who's also, he has a unique combination in the world of academia and the world of technology. One, he is a religious scholar and he is a theologian. Two, he is the CEO of the Corporation for Public Interest Technology in Washington, D.C. He holds a PhD from the Union Theological Seminary in the city of New York, studying contemporary religion and contemporary society. But then he is an eminent technologist who thinks about the latest and deepest technologies and how they affect the human person. He thinks about it in a very unique way because he holds just a space that not many people hold at all. He is the chair and professor of Black Studies at Northwestern University in Chicago. Well, I heard something there. Go Wildcats. And he is the CEO again of this technology firm that is concerned about the way in which we as human beings interact with technologies, both to enhance them, but also to think about them in a new and innovative way. So I want you to welcome to the stage Dr. Sylvester A. Johnson.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Johnson, Dr. Johnson. We will. We were back there just holding and appreciative of you all for their work and how much they appreciate you. So I'm sure we're going to hear about that on KCSM radio pretty soon. So, Dr. Johnson, I want to talk to you a little bit about not just AI. I want to talk to you about a little bit about what the landscape of technology is today, very briefly, in order to give us just an idea of what it is we can be thinking about just in the landscape of where we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again for this invitation, Dr. Grizzell. Really excited to be here with you and in San Francisco celebrating such an important legacy of King, his attention, that movement's attention to transforming our society and just iterating that vision and reflecting on what that means for us. When I think about the changes that are happening in technology, it is both concerning and also inspiring. It's both an exciting time to be part of our world in which we're able to have access to so many of these innovations in everyday life in some extraordinary ways, and it's also, it raises lots of questions and excitement. So one of the things that I see at a very high level is just the speed with which particularly digital technologies are accelerating. AI and AI-related forms of tech are changing so fast that if you were to take some of the things we can do today and talking to an AI system, getting a response, asking complicated questions, getting insights from a massive amount of data, whatever that is, if we were just to go back 5 years, it would blow people's minds. And as we see the pace of that, I think there are 3 things I would point to. This kind of high level, understanding some of these shifts. One, what it means for access. So we have both a challenge of access. There are communities that still don't have access to broadband, high-speed internet, for example. But there are also people who are getting access to, at a relatively low cost, to expertise and information about all kinds of things. If you have a question about your health and you get very difficult language that your doctor sends you through that electronic health record system, you can ask an AI, can you just put this in everyday language? I don't understand what this stuff means. And it can help make sense for you. You can say, can you give me 10 questions I should ask my doctor when I see him tomorrow, given what this is? And you can have a much better conversation with that doctor or your financial planner or whoever that expert is. But it's changing access. It's changing access to be able to participate in launching a business or in entering a new area of thought. It's making learning more accessible. Another thing I think about particularly is some of the challenges that speed brings. It's very uneven. That is to say, there's a lot that's becoming available, and most people can't keep up with just how quickly that's happening. And that's in everything, how industry works, it's how our financial systems are working, and it's the speed with which there are things like energy demand. The electricity demands are significant, so there are environmental questions. And the last thing I'd say is there is so much new value and new wealth that's getting created by this technology. That's something I think is worth some deep dive and conversations across our society. There's both good reason for people to see that as a challenge, where wealth can easily get more concentrated. Right now, we're seeing a lot of that. I also think it's important to look at that as an opportunity, however. That is to say, since we have a world with so much inequality, we have rising issues of affordability. There are too many people who are locked out of economic participation. Since it has become so possible to create so much new value, given the legacy of King in this movement and just the things that we need to attend, that is a question, how do we transform our world to create more economic justice? I think we have to be asking a question. How do we, if we have so much potential to create more economic value, how do we spread it around? How do we get more people on the on-ramp to be able to own some of that new value and to have more opportunities that they could not have before? That question, I think, needs to be even more interesting to us and more motivating than the questions of what we are afraid of.
We spoke a little bit over this holiday about the impact of technology and AI and biotech here on health.
Yes.
And you mentioned some new things that are happening that surprised me, but that help us to understand some of these very new bleeding edge things that maybe are or will be impacting us and impacting our health access and health of overall health going forward.
Yeah, thanks for that, Dr. Grizzell. So I'll say there's so many things going on. I think it's useful to think about it in a couple of buckets. One is managing information, And then the other is something that I often refer to as human engineering, even though I've not seen that term thrown around. If you go to a university, they don't have a department called human engineering. But I'll say what I mean by that in a moment. Just on managing information. So many of you may have heard that within the past 10 days or so, OpenAI released OpenAI for Health, which is aimed for consumers, and OpenAI for Healthcare, which is aimed to providers, that allows both patients and doctors to be able to have their health data in a HIPAA-compliant data system. So that's just federal privacy law that basically says you have to treat medical information as confidential and private, and it needs to be secured, so that people can get questions about their health, and doctors and other people on the healthcare team who have massive amounts of data and inputs. You know, I go into a doctor's office, they have only 5 minutes to get ready to see me. I might be the 20th person they've seen that day. And then in about 15 minutes, they have to go to person number 21. And so the human being can only absorb so much data at one time. They can't remember all of it about me, but the AI can basically say, here's Sylvester Johnson, he's next, here's all his information, here are 3 things you need to really look at closely. And for patients, they can get a lot more analysis and knowledge. On the human engineering side, one of the biggest things that's happening now when people hear about AI today, not always, but usually that's referring to what's called large language models or generative AI. And the shortcut for understanding what that is generating something that hadn't been seen before, that was not created before. It could be text, so it can write poetry, an article. It could be music. You can say, write a song for me. It could be visual. You could say, create an image or create a short video for me. And it'll just create something that doesn't exist before. And that generative AI is so useful because it can mathematically model language or images or music in order to create a new form of words, language, images, music. So about a couple of years ago, some researchers at Stanford were wondering, well, if you could model language, could you model DNA? Could you model the human genome and then use it to create new types of things that our DNA creates? So our DNA codes proteins in every part of our bodies. And the answer turned out to be, yeah. Actually, this AI is really good at modeling the human genome or a plant's genome, any biological genome, and then creating new DNA, new proteins, new compounds, even inorganic materials. And what we have now is the ability to use AI to create new molecules that didn't exist before. New proteins, new DNA, new genes. So if you wanted to create a new version of a human genetics, you can now use AI to come up with it very quickly. You can validate it in the lab, see if it really works. And this is how pharmaceutical companies are creating new drugs. They're accelerating the discovery. What used to take years can now be done in terms of the discovery of new compounds in weeks instead of years, validating that in the lab, or even days. And the ability to cure diseases. It's going to become possible to use AI to develop new forms of DNA or new molecules that can be part of someone's body to be able to, say, change their genome so they'll never again have to worry about heart disease or cancer or high blood pressure or diabetes or other diseases. Not only they, but it will become possible for their children to inherit that same genetic material, the same ability to create those proteins. So that your children would never have to worry about those diseases. Their children would never have to worry about dying from those diseases. And this is what I mean by human engineering, that we're reaching a point where we can redesign, re-engineer humans and other life forms, plants and other non-human animals, from their genetic cellular level up. That's not going to be only AI, but it will be led by AI. And just to put the point further, in 2023, December 23, the Food and Drug Administration approved the first genetic treatment for sickle cell anemia, And actually, they did 2 forms of this so that doctors can go in, they can change a person's DNA so that their bodies will produce normal red blood cells so that they're no longer suffering from that sickle cell disease. So that's the first time the FDA approved a genetic engineering treatment for a disease. We can expect to see a lot more coming, and it will be because of DNA.
Those incredible possibilities. What are the threats to our privacy? What are we giving up for something like? Is it something that we are willing to give up? Is it a, you know, I'm going to break the glass and decide to, you know, apologize later for breaking the glass kind of thing? What are some of the implications we may need to be thinking about with this very powerful sort of framework?
Yeah, it's a great question. What you're pointing to is what might we give up? Are we breaking something first? There's a saying, better to ask for forgiveness than permission. You do something first and then say, oops, I'm sorry, you know, was that? These are amazing, both exciting changes and possibilities. They should also sound disturbing to people who are willing to think about how things could go wrong. And so, for example, we have had the current federal administration in the U.S. to nullify some of the work that had been done earlier to put controls around very powerful forms of generative AI. So I just told you we can create new DNA, new genetic material, and new proteins using AI. And I'll just kind of make the point, COVID was not invented by AI. I just want to be clear because I'm going to use this as an example. COVID did not come from AI. But you could use AI to say, give it your parameters and say, create a disease that has these characteristics that's very difficult to neutralize with the vaccine because it has these. You can basically enter your parameters and use very powerful forms of AI to create highly dangerous, unnatural, novel pathogens that have never existed before. You could even design it in a way to target just Sylvester Johnson. It would only work on my DNA. It wouldn't kill anybody else. Or you could say, I want it to affect only people who have these proteins in their bodies or this genetic pattern in their DNA, but not affect anyone else. So now you're targeting a genetic population or a set of features. So that's now possible. Now you need labs to manufacture that. You can't just do that in your garage with a laptop. You also need the materials to synthesize that pathogen. But the point is that we don't have controls in place right now to prevent that kind of thing from happening, because we're in a political situation where the doctrine is not only are we not going to regulate AI, we're going to punish states to try to regulate it, and we're just going to keep everything open, and supposedly that will help us to beat countries that we label as our enemies. When I think our biggest enemy is, as King would say, is the inequality. And then there's privacy, there's the ability to take images of people. So the XAI, Elon Musk's AI company, is now under a lot of scrutiny because their AI allows you to enter an image of someone or video, and it will create an unclothed version of that person without their consent, and then put that out there. We can also triangulate information. So you can grab bits and pieces of my data footprint, figure out, and so the federal government, US government, can do this now with a contract they've done with Palantir, which is a sophisticated tech company, and see everyone in my network, where I've traveled, where those people have traveled, where our lives intersect, where our interests intersect, go through all my social media, get all my travel data, get all my purchase data, just collect all of these things, know more about me that I can never know about myself. And if you wanted to repress me or target me for political reasons, whatever, that is now becoming possible. So those are profound threats to well-being.
So concerning this this deep fake stuff. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, someone asked me a question about what are you, Dr. Grizzell, going to do about all of these new videos coming out about Dr. King? And I didn't know what they were talking about, so he showed me some of these videos. And they were videos of Dr. King, you know, in speeches that he never gave, using four-letter expletives in the speeches that he never gave. But it was like him, you know? What is this era of technology, what is this era of capabilities as you've seen in your experience? You were a 2024 Kluge Chair for Technology and Society at the Kluge Center in the Library of Congress. What is it that you had seen in your experience about how these technologies are being used to change and call into question fact and you know, truth and all of those types of things that we continue to wrestle with today?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it's about, you know, so many things. These are emerging technologies. When I was at the Library of Congress, I was looking at emerging, what used to be emerging, nuclear power and the internet used to be emerging. You know, we're used to it now, but at one time it was new. And what used to be emerging, what is now currently emerging, the things we're talking about, hypersonic weapons, AI, generative, advanced precision medicine, biotech. And then what were the regulatory efforts around that is the set of topics I was examining. I also had a chance to interact with people who worked as congressional staffers, not as elected officials, but as people who were there as their careers to facilitate that policymaking process. The tech is fast moving. As I said, we are now in a political environment that is punitive toward regulating AI, even though the need to regulate it is even more urgent. And so what I've seen is some useful and hard lessons from the past about how tech could be regulated. We failed to be anticipatory enough to ask enough hard questions about social media. For example, we were too optimistic about the internet. Oh, it's the information highway and it's going to democratize knowledge. Now, a lot of people, it has democratized things, and we should not deny the benefits of it. We should never use the problems of something to deny its benefits. If we can't tell the truth about it, what are we doing? I mean, let's be sophisticated. At the same time, we failed to really look hard at problems and to develop solutions. It seems like people are aware that we are failing to do that again with the case of AI, particularly the political fight over the regulation. And in terms of the kinds of things that can emerge, this is going to move, and it is already moving much faster than any other form of tech has ever happened. And because AI is going to be part and parcel of every other form of technology that we develop. In other words, we're going to use AI to help us discover and iterate whatever else we discover, whether it's aviation or farming, it doesn't matter what it is. It's going to go fast, and it's going to change more quickly. So it's not going to become easier to regulate as we get along. It's going to become harder.
So in that space, tell me what gives you hope about this technology and what gives you hope about we as people in this fast-moving environment.
Well, I'm glad you asked that. I'm reminded of something I heard Van Jones say in a conversation with Babatunde Thurston, and they were talking about AI in society. And they said, you know, we hear a lot of talk about what AI is going to disrupt. It's going to disrupt jobs. It's going to disrupt communications. This. He said, since this technology is so disruptive, can we disrupt racism? Can we disrupt white supremacy? Can we disrupt inequality? Can we disrupt these old stagnant legacy patterns that produce the challenges that we have? You know, and another way of saying that is, people are very concerned, as they should be, about the way digital tech is exacerbating the problem of misinformation, because AI can be very persuasive. And so I think we should be asking, well, if it can be persuasive, instead of treating that only as a threat, shouldn't we be curious? Can we persuade more people to care about what Howard Thurman called the disinherited? What King said, or people who need to be at the center of our beloved community and who've been excluded? In other words, there's no shortage of things we could be very negative and pessimistic about, and we need to be very clear-sighted about problems. But I actually am very excited about the fact that barriers to entry and participation are coming down. And I work as an educator at a higher ed institution that, like almost every other higher ed institution, we get a lot of applications. We only let in a fraction of the people. But there is a lot of access to things. I mean, AI is making it possible for someone with an internet connection and $20 a month or free to have whatever lecture I'm selling inside that university behind that paywall, they can get funnier jokes with that lecture, a better looking dude to give that lecture. And they can have some, and I'm not saying it's the same as in person, I'm saying they can start to understand some things, even if they can't afford the tuition, even if they didn't get admitted, they can get something that can help them to participate economically in our society. We can disrupt some things, and I think that if we are careful not to fall into the trap of reducing tech to its problems, because it's not just a problem, it is a resource for all kinds of things. And if we get ambitious in our imagination about disrupting things that we have said we want to disrupt for a long time, and to include more people, we now have more resources to do that. We do. We have more resources to do that.
Wow. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Sylvester A. Johnson, let's give him a great big hand. He's doing great work in the public interest technology space. What are you doing right now? What is your latest project, and what are you working on?
Yes, so our company, Corporation for Public Interest Technology, is a public benefit company. So we are focused on harnessing tech in a way that is accountable to the public interest, that creates more positive impacts on society. And because we started with a mission, we didn't even have a product when we started at Grizzell. We had a philosophy, is that we wanted to function in a particular kind of way to create more, to empower more communities and people through the positive impact that you could get. So one of the things that we're doing now is working with a nonprofit client, and we're supporting several clients in the nonprofit sector. We're not limited to the nonprofit sector. It's just where we've started, in order to help them to fulfill their mission. Even if they've had budget cuts, for example, they have less capacity, they're not abandoning their mission, so we're helping them to do that. We are committed to bringing together these two meanings of equity. Equity is fairness and justice, equity is ownership. And so for example, we can customize software for clients that they can't buy off a shelf. We're able to do that in a way, if they want to own the value of that, because it makes sense for them to do that based on what they're creating, they get to keep IP over their IP. If they want to own that software product, we don't have to own it, we can customize it to them, so then they get to benefit from the value of something. Right. So we're able to change the business model of nonprofits by partnering. So that's one of the latest things that we're working on now.
Wow, wow, wow. Well, it's wonderful to help us to understand a little more about this environment and to give us an idea of the challenges that we have. We don't, I mean, we could go on and on just on one of the subjects. Healthcare can just take us, all the way through. But we certainly appreciate your expertise here in giving us here in San Francisco a chance to understand a little better about how we can better think about technology. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We certainly appreciate
Yes.
certainly appreciate that. Now, thank you.
The Northern California Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Community Foundation is dedicated to empowering individuals and communities by promoting civil and human rights, fostering social and economic justice, and encouraging holistic well-being. Through a range of dynamic programs and events, we strive to unlock the promise in every person and create a more equitable and inclusive society. From our flagship events, the Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration and the King and Faith and International Colloquium Series, to the Black and Brown Comics Arts Festival, the Center for Social Impact Development and Global Engagement, and the MLK Social Justice Center and Gallery, the Foundation strives to foster a more just, inclusive, and compassionate society and world, where individuals are empowered and where all communities can thrive. Support the NorcalMLK Foundation at NorcalMLKFoundation.org/donate